Are you trying to find your first job in dermatology, but you realize after looking at a bunch of job vacancies that you need to get experience first? And now you're on the internet trying to figure out where you can get experience, education, and training. I understand because I'm just like you. I didn't learn about derm in nursing school or in P school, and now I'm out here. I fallen in love with dermatology and I'm not qualified, even though I have more than a decade of experience. So now, just like me, you're on the internet trying to find out if other nurse practitioners are talking about or giving away their secrets as to how they got their first job in derm. Well, that's what we're going to do today. So make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to tell you exactly what I did to get my first job in dermatology and how you can do the same thing. Particularly if you're interested in medical derm, you've been on YouTube, and just like me, you've only probably seen NurseAggz videos, who I absolutely love, and I always give her credit because as far as I can tell, she's the only one who's been consistently making videos as a nurse practitioner about medical derm. So I'm here to throw my hat in the ring, share my experience, share my journey as I build my business and my practice and to build a community because I know that I'm not going to reach the levels of success that I want, either in my practice or in my business alone. And so I'm here to build a community of other nurse practitioners who desire the same thing. If this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Kimberly Madison, a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner. And I use social media to share my journey. This is part of my nurse practitioner diary series. I'll put the little card here so that you can see my other entries. Like I said, today we're going to talk about how you can get your first job in dermatology. Um, if you're not a nurse practitioner yet, but you're a student, you're in clinical rotation, you're a new grad, maybe even an experienced nurse practitioner, this is for you too. Make sure you subscribe so that you can be notified next time I go live, which will be this weekend. Because if you watched my last video, then you know what I'm doing this weekend. And this weekend, I'm going to give you a wonderful update. So today here, so let's talk about it. You fall in love with derm. So first thing you need to know is derm has 3 subspecialties: medical, cosmetics, sometimes called aesthetics, and surgical. On social media, we see a lot of beautiful images, fun videos about cosmetics and aesthetics. But if you're interested in medical derm, unfortunately, in P school and in nursing school, and most of our early years in clinical practice, we only know about the integumentary system and wounds. Now, wounds is a beautiful specialty, but when you're learning it at the bedside and you've got a lot of other competing priorities, it's not as seen as attractive because wound care does take time. And when you have to already do a million other things, you can develop kind of a negative attitude towards wounds. But don't count it out because wounds is seen as acceptable experience to getting your first derm job. So experience. Where can you get this experience? So what I loved about NurseAggz video is that in her latest video on things she would do differently in her career, she talked about shadowing. And so if you're a student at any point in time in your career, shadowing is a wonderful low cost investment where you can get a really high return on the amount of time that you put in. So things can look really great on the outside. I think a lot of us know that nursing turned out to be more than we anticipated. And just like these specialties, especially with all this content that's in social media, it can look really great. And then you can get there and decide that maybe it's actually not for you. And I know people who have done both medical and cosmetic derm and have left because they figured it just wasn't for them. So my first recommendation is to shadow. And so that's something that I did. And I have to give a lot of credit to a good friend of mine who's in DMPs of color with me because she gave me the tip that I think really helped me land that shadowing opportunity. Um, and that was just to show up in person. And so, and she said she used this to get her to find preceptors too. I'll come back another time and talk about my secret sauce to preceptors because I have had multiple preceptors for more than almost 1,000 hours because I started a really long time ago getting preceptors. So I know all about cold calling and I can share that in an upcoming video. If that's something you want to hear about, let me know in the comments. So shadowing. So she said what she did is she took a basket, and I did exactly what she told me. I went and got a basket. I filled it with nice, healthy, nurse friendly treats. I put a little card in there that had my contact information. It was a handwritten card. I told them, what I was looking to do, in terms of that, my love for dermatology, that I was looking to shadow to gain experience. I put specifically what I wanted to get out of that shadow opportunity, and I had already went online and looked up potential Derm NPs who I could shadow. And where I was at the time, it's a short list. And so I had made 3 baskets. This was the first place I went to, put my little handwritten note, went to the front desk, provided my treats, also had a conversation with the front desk, told them what I wanted to do. And by that evening, I had heard back from the NP, and I put my email and my phone number because you just never know who else is going to pick up your card. And so it worked. I had never even dropped off the 3rd basket, and the 2nd basket I went to go drop it off, but they weren't open on that particular day. And I had plans to just come back the following day, but since that night I heard from the NP who agreed to let me shadow, I ended up just needing that 1 basket after all. And so that particular practice, they hadn't been letting students in for some time. So they recently put together like a document that they wanted me to sign, and they were only going to let me do it for 40 hours, which for me worked out fine because I was actually on a travel assignment and it was about to end. And so it was perfect for me. Now, if you're in clinical rotation, most programs only give you about 40 hours to explore outside of the required curriculum. But, just talk to your school, find out, if they'll allow you to get more than 40, because let's just say they won't let you do more than 40, but you have a really strong interest in derm and your schedule allows it, do as much as you can, right? Because that's only gonna help improve your chances for getting that first derm job. And so they had me sign a piece of paper, which I have to admit is the first time I ever signed papers to shadow specifically. But you know what I really liked about that document is it outlined the expectations both for me and for them. And so I actually really like it. And if I was talking to a practice who was thinking about allowing students to shadow, it would be something I recommend. I wouldn't put the restriction on the hours, but I would recommend that they consider whether they want to make it open-ended or limit it. So that's certainly a conversation to be had. One thing that's really great about shadowing, not only do you get to learn, if this is something you really want to do, you get to see all the people who are on the team, right? So front desk, management, and of course the providers. If you're shadowing in a place where you live and plan to practice, you get to see the kind of clientele that are coming in. I really loved going. So a few things I really loved. I love seeing how the schedule was laid out, how many patient visits occur per hour, how they divide up medical and cosmetic visits, what a focus visit looks like compared to a follow-up, how the MA comes in and presents the case, who does what, the MP, the MA, and they had an esthetician. And I was so happy, even though I only had 40 hours, which I think was 3 days, I got to see laser training. I got to talk to so many reps. I got to see pretty much everyone in the practice get some kind of procedure done because the boss was actually out on on vacation. And one of the things that I absolutely love that I can't wait to talk about on the podcast, Melanin Initiative podcast, is how you can use laser to treat incontinence. I really want to convince my mom to do that. So I'll talk about more about that in the future. But it was just a plethora of experiences, and it just only further showed me how much I really love it and what you can do. And you have to be realistic, right? Look what time the clinic starts, how long they might finish. Is there an admin day? What's the rest of the week look like? How long does it take you to chart? Do you have a scribe? Um, do you like the scribe? What was that training like? Uh, what EMR system are you using? What was the learning curve for that? And then, of course, the different procedures, the diagnoses. How do you walk through all your differentials? What do you do when you have some complicated cases? Which I saw a couple that were super fascinating. Even she hadn't seen them too much, and so it was really cool to just talk through it with her. One thing that she taught me that I stole and I still use it to this very day is she uses like the OneNote notebook. Um, Maybe I'll write an article and put it up on the blog. But it's part of like the Office suite, Microsoft Office, and she just created different tabs for different diagnoses. And it's super helpful when you attend a conference and you're getting a ton of information really quickly. But what I really loved is I saw her using it in clinical practice. And so when she does go to events, she would have a notebook and handwrite everything out. And I think she still does that to some extent to help with retention, but she also keeps this digital notebook. And that's what I use personally for conferences. That's what I use in my clinical practice when I'm learning stuff, going through modules, attending conferences, even online webinars, even some podcasts have been extremely, extremely helpful and rich with rich content. And I just take my notes and I have my little tabs and it's even color coded. Um, and I know I used to be like a hard notebook kind of person too, but my life has just gone digital in every way. It's especially as a traveler, it's easier to pack, takes up less space. It's always accessible because you can log in and get it from anywhere. I don't know if OneNote is on you can get like if it's part of the app on your phone, but I know all the other products that Microsoft has are, so I would assume yes, but I don't know for sure. So I loved that, and I love being able to see how she utilizes it in practice. Plus, it showed me because it gave me a lot of confidence because there's 3,000 diagnoses in derm, and it's kind of like how do you put all of that together? And like I talked about in my last video on confidence and fear, especially as a new nurse practitioner, and even as a new nurse, you learn, and then when you're in school, you learn about hundreds of different diagnoses, and it can seem really overwhelming. Certainly contribute to that imposter syndrome. But what you find out is even though you're responsible for knowing all of those, on a common day, you're going to see the most common things because the most common things happen commonly. And so it might be that you see the same 50 things, most days of the year, and that every once in a while you see some things that are just a little bit unusual. It might require a little bit more digging. So hopefully that's motivating to someone. So yeah, so those are all the things you can glean from your clinical experience. Make sure you walk away with something. Because I wasn't staying there in that particular state, the opportunity for a job wasn't necessarily at the top of my list in terms of goals or things I want to walk away with. But had I done that, had I been staying there, or wherever you are, you want to work where you're doing your shadow opportunity, think of every day from the minute you drop off that basket as an interview. You're interviewing them and you're letting them get their first impression of you. Do it with a lot of tact, because obviously they know, I'm sure at some point you're going to express that you're looking for a job opportunity. And if you don't know, while you probably have seen jobs for derm, just like me, on LinkedIn, Indeed, all these other search engines for job opportunities, especially for clinicians, is that you will see jobs, but the majority of them are not going to be online. And just like anything in life, we're going to tell the people that we know first. And so you really do need to get on the inside. And shadowing is a great way to do that. And so even if that practice doesn't have an opportunity for you, certainly if you're there long enough, they can build a rapport with you in a relationship, and they will especially if you maintain that relationship, as soon as they find out about something, they're going to let you know. And if you get a chance to meet any of the reps, that's a huge secret. And that's why always promote going to conferences, because you're going to see so many reps there. And even if, let's say, you go to San Antonio for a conference, um, with diversity in dermatology, those reps, they know all their other colleagues throughout the nation. And so what they'll do is they'll take your name and number and they'll be like, yes, I'll pass on your information to my colleague in, the DMV area or wherever you might be located. So that's a super hot secret. It's a secret if you're not in derm, but everybody in derm knows that your pharmaceutical reps are the first ones to know who's opening a practice, who's closing a practice, who's leaving, who's hiring, who's going out on maternity leave, those kind of things. So you really want to be super close with them and friendly. I even know that they will, they have dinners all the time, and you can get invited to those, and you should go. There's a great networking opportunity. People can see you're interested, get to know you by first name, and of course, you get to continue to learn to make sure this is actually something that you want to do. Yeah, and then you have the opportunity if you're combining your shadow experience with some kind of education program, um, that only will increase your education, which can start immediately, right? Because the learning curve in derm is so steep. And so if you're thinking about it, if it's just like, oh, I just want to see if I like derm, then maybe you're not doing anything. But if you know for sure this is something you want to do, perhaps you can make sure this lines up with when you're actually taking some kind of course. Um, which will just help kind of make it make sense. And then when you go to your shadow experience, look at the books that they have and the resources that they use. Because even in the short time that I was there, I saw a fascinating book on how to take care of nails, um, a couple journals, which they get bombarded with a lot of that stuff. So sometimes they don't even want to hang on to it. But for me and for you, it's like candy. And so I was happy to be able to explore those. And speaking of that, there was also like the microscope where we were able to talk about her biopsies and how she takes samples and looks under the slide and the time management on that too. Always think about how does this fit in the overall picture? Don't just stay like laser focused on the specialty itself. You really got to think more broadly on how is this going to impact my overall workflow and and how does that reflect in the life I want to actually live. So think about that. And then I've talked to her about like their dermatopathologist who's in the area, Mohs surgeons. These are all some great keywords that you can bring up and jot down. So before your experience, if you're not taking a class or in a program, I would recommend doing a little bit of research. Certainly, you can go to the Dermatology Nurses Association. I don't know that you'll have access to a lot without being a member. But the frequently asked questions is a good section to start with. I know the AAD, they have some stuff that you can access without being a member. So you could peruse there. Of course, my thing, I'm going to tell you to go to the literature, see what's hot, see what are your original interests in wanting to do derm, and kind of start with that and let it lead you. If you're already a nurse practitioner and you have your NPI or your national provider identifier, then you can get a complimentary subscription to JDD, which is the Journal of Drugs and Dermatology. It's my favorite journal, but I mention it because they offer a complimentary subscription. And after if you're coming out of school, you've paid for boards, you've paid for your licensure, you've already accumulated quite a bit of debt or you've had quite a few expenses. And so when you're thinking about these organizations um, and these journals in particular, you're thinking about how much is it going to cost me, but more importantly, what am I going to get on my return for investment? That's something that I've been super hyper aware about. And so I really always like to talk about what are the benefits of spending, $100, $200, $300 to be a member. What are you going to get out of it? But what are you going to put into it so you get more out of it? Um, and joining an organization is a great way to find shadowing opportunities. So if that one clinic is only going to give you, say, 40 or 50 hours, you can go to another clinic and just add it up. And so depending on where you are in your journey and when you want to get this first job, you might have another year, might even have another 2 years, and that it will add up and really help boost your resume and help you get those interviews. So I think that covers mostly the key points when it comes to shadowing. If there's anything I forgot, just let me know in the comments. I think this is a great topic. I haven't written about this, so I will write an article on the Mahogany Dermatology blog. The link to that is in my bio. You can click there. I'll come back and make an updated video once that's posted, so that you can have easy access to that. But yeah, so my first job in derm was actually for writing, and it's kind of untraditional, I guess, because if you are a clinician, especially if you're a licensed clinician, you've passed your boards, you think your only job is patient care, or you might even think of like leadership and executive positions, but there's really such a plethora of opportunities out there. And so one thing I talk about all the time is how grateful I am for my travel experience, but more importantly, the fact that I didn't take my job right away and I took that year as my working sabbatical by not getting that job right away and taking off the time so that I could explore all these other interests I have, which were both inside and outside of healthcare, and just showed me all the opportunities that allow me to advance my clinical practice, build businesses, have a life that's not, around the clock patient care. And so I'm so grateful for that time. That continues to be my number one advice. Take the time to explore. If you have a family, if you already have all these responsibilities and you don't have mm, the opportunity to take off a whole year, think about how you can dedicate maybe just an hour every week. Particularly if you really can't make any changes in your life, an hour every week can add up really quickly, and it can show you all the many different opportunities. Certainly, you can look for yourself on the internet here, networking, in person, virtual. You're going to get much more helpful information and probably more transparent experiences when you do it in person, though. Just think about, you know, as clinicians, we're very conscious about our social media footprint. So people are gonna, they're gonna be honest. They're gonna give you like their firsthand account, but just know the real juicy stuff is when you have those in person experiences. And so, it's one of the reasons I started the DMV Dermatology and PPA group is so that we can build up a community and we can start having those in-person as well as virtual events. But I'm really looking forward to the in-person opportunities so that we can network, learn about what's available, and identify people who we can have partnerships and collaborate with. That's what I really love. I just love it. I think, I've been in academia for my whole life. I've been in healthcare for almost 15 years. And a lot of that can be, and even building a business can be really lonely. And as nurses, we tend to work in silos and suffer in silence, trying to figure things out on our own. And we don't have to do that. We really can come together. We're the largest segment of the workforce. Our voices should be the loudest. We should be the most prominent. And I think we can get there if we come together. So I invite you to take this journey with me. If you haven't already, please subscribe so that you can be notified next time I post a video. Most of my videos are live. And, if you're trying to get into social media, that's my recommendation, especially if you're a busy clinician like me. You get the biggest bang for your buck. This is going to go straight up. I'm not going to get bogged down with editing and looking at it, looking back at it and making all these changes. Make this video and then I can go on to the next thing, which is usually at this point is some charting and studying, of course. So for my next video this weekend, I'll go live again. As usual, I go live on the weekend, typically on Saturdays. We're going to do I'm going to recap my experience in my first group coaching experience. And so I can't wait to share that with you. And if I missed anything about shadowing or you want me to elaborate on something, just let me know in the comments. Please give this a thumbs up. This is a new channel and I'm just trying to help it grow. And really, as you know, because there's so many limited resources for us, it can be a little bit challenging to find that information. And so when you give this a thumbs up, it lets YouTube know that this information is valuable and that we want all of our colleagues to know about it. And yeah, so thank you so much for watching. I'll be in touch.